Good morning, namaskar, everyone, and I hope everyone is keeping healthy and safe and taking good care of yourself. Festivities, traditions, customs, they're the heart of the Indian culture, and so it's no surprise that excitement ramps up around the country during the festival period. It sparks many micro moments too. In fact, at my own home, you keep listening to this conversation that, Diwali dinner recipes, I want to bake a cake, oven needs to be replaced. I need to buy my own laptop, can't share with your son anymore. And the best was, need to get the house painted, and I said, this time I must get some courage. And I said, from inside? You want people inside? They said, no, 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 from outside. So you get those unexpected answers. So that happens. But well, while the road to the economic recovery is long and troubled, but all these discussions gives a very positive sentiment. And I'm in no doubt that amongst the marketeers also, it is a time to cash in the upcoming festival season. The pandemic continues, the vaccine is still a few months away, but the sentiments of the home weary consumers are also improving, and with many are eager to step out and shop, and therefore it becomes imperative to engage with the customers actively now. In any normal circumstances, the brands look at the festive season as an opportunity to gain maximum ROIs, leverage the consumer sentiments during this time. It's actually the time when you buy new clothes, white goods, homes are whitewashed, interiors are redone, the household goods are bought. Purchase of the gold is considered auspicious during this particular time. The brands clamor for the TV ads and sales and promotions. You see all that happening around. But unlike festival time shopping, this year is not a normal year. And we will all agree that COVID-19 has adversely impacted the retail and the shopping center industries, and in turns, it is also affecting the way people celebrating the festivals and the special occasions as well. So what does this all mean for a brand owners, for marketeers, and is your brand really connecting with your target audience? Is your brand visible during these celebrations? Are your brand and consumers leveraging the digital landscape? How should you be spending to entice your customers? What happens if you don't achieve the ROIs with all these particular spends? And I would love to hear from the panelists today, and the key insights that, they are ensuring that the brand is ready to meet the customers and in this particular festive season. We have an outstanding panel of leaders today. They're the top leaders in the retail industry, and I'm glad that they have all taken out time to, in probably one of the most busy period for them, for a very free flowing conversation. So allow me to have a very brief introduction for everyone. So we got Ajay Arora. Ajay is the managing director for DTechR. Anshu Sharma, co-founder and CEO Magic Pin. Girisha, executive director, Knight Frank India. Ritesh Kushal, chief of marketing and insights, Infinity Retail, Chroma. And we got Sachin Jain, managing directors, DBS India. And the conversation is moderated by Anurag Mathur, partner strategy and which is a part of the PwC network. So very, very warm welcome to everyone. Anurag, the screen is all yours. And I will return towards the end to speak to everyone on how's your shopping list looking like this Diwali. And until then, I'll take the best seat to hear a very, very engaging and insightful conversation. Anurag.
Great. Thanks, Deepak. Thank you very much for choosing and putting together this fine panel. I think you've set the saying clearly. It is the festive season that sets the tempo for the business, right? It sets the tempo for the year. It's, whether how business is going to be, and so to say, the great Indian shopping mela comes together at this time. Right? This is what we're known for. I think this year has been clearly very, very different, and I think with the mix of panelists I have, I would actually like to just kickstart the conversation by asking each of them around how what is the consumer mood this festive season, because clearly it is not same as what we see. There is polarization in that mood, and as we've already been through a month of different pieces and we enter Diwali season, how do you read the consumer mood? Has it really lifted consumer sentiment coming into this festive, or are they sort of where they were? Are they returning to malls, marketplaces? So let me probably start with the offline folks. Girish, if you could, you probably have a close view on traffic in malls and marketplaces, and how people are walking into commercial places. So it'd be great to get a perspective. Are they, has festive brought people out of their homes, or is it still, how is that shaping?
Great. Thanks. So I will largely, space my comments on the perspective on what's been the response in the real estate sector broadly. And, honestly, today is a dichotomous environment and a dichotomous reality in all honesty. On one side, you've got the worst ever, statistics on unemployment. You've got the worst ever statistics since independence and the time that, the overall GDP growth was monitored. You've got the worst ever scenario in terms of the mental health levels and a sense of doom that seems to be what we hear in the news and what we kind of see in various spaces. And on the other side, you've got this whole exciting news that keeps getting thrown up in all media about the great sales that have been happening, and the highest ever sales of iPhones and the highest ever sales of XYZ items. So I think that really is an interesting, balance of I think, peculiarity, if you will, that we are all facing. And just to throw some interesting numbers to you, for example, this year, home sales have been up 35% over previous year. This month has been the fourth highest monthly registration of stamp duty payment and home since April 2013 in Mumbai. Stamp duty, while it is at 233 crores, is down. It's still higher than previous years, and that's because the overall percentage has dropped from 5% to 2% to propel home sales. Mumbai sales this October are at 11,600 crores. Mumbai sales last year were 8,800 crores. So you can see that increase is also strong. And in a pre-COVID environment, when in March 2019, sales were at 6,200 crores. So as you can see, there's a huge jump in terms of all of these numbers. But on the same side, you see that there are mall owners who are finding that tenants who have picked up large spaces are renegotiating rents, are trying to kind of bring down their cost of operations and trying to reduce the overall outflow in cash flows that they are experiencing. So you see these kind of dynamics. You see a huge impact in terms of the large corporations announcing work from home. So there are tremendous ramifications on new age businesses such as co-working, which will eventually see some kind of rejig of their business models when large pockets of employees start operating from home in the coming year, and as they have been in this year itself. So I think, to my mind, the play out has still to be seen. This is not the either end all or the where all of the impact of COVID. I think the force multiplier impact of the pandemic will play its tune out over the next couple of years. And I think it's important for all of us as probably guardians of our brands, our businesses, and maybe soothsayers of the categories that we operate in, to kind of keep our ears to the ground and also look at a very strong technology inflow and impetus, because that's really going to help all of us and our businesses be able to navigate this rocky terrain as it comes forward. So that's my point of view.
Right, Girish. I think thanks for that. I think that so clearly technology, and I think I hear you say where there is value, especially on the home side, people are spending the money moving out. The commercial side, there's still been a little more probably a shift to technology. So I think looking at that perspective, I'm sure it'll be great to get some sense from you on the man of the moment in terms of moving everything towards online. So how are you seeing the online space? And you do a lot of online to offline as well. So how is that space evolving, and is that showing a somber picture, or is the festivities abound?
Yeah, sure, Anurag. And let me just start by a brief 30-second introduction for what we do. We drive discovery and savings for retail. We do that across online, offline, large retailers, small retailers, home delivery, walk into a store. And a lot of what we have seen that has happened in the last 6 months or so is that the retail ecosystem has fundamentally just shifted a lot more towards online. Of course, technology enables all of that. Like, to give you one number, that we were driving close to $1 billion of GMV through our system to different retail institutions in the country, and primarily in the top 10 cities. That's where most of our focus is. And around 25% of that was online. In the last 6 months, that's transitioned from being 25% online to almost 70% online. Now, what that means, and this is not just moving towards, let's say, the big guys, Amazon, the Flipkarts of the world. This is a lot of offline retailers bringing on very strong online strategies to play. In this, and a lot of our businesses around the small merchants, we have enabled a lot of them to accept online orders, and we are seeing close to 60% of them getting online orders now, where there weren't any some time back. But then also large retailers across industries, fashion, apparel, even grocery, using a more omni-channel strategy, which was always something they wanted to do, but coming up with their direct-to-consumer initiative. And then a bunch of direct-to-consumer brands itself launching in the last 6 months. So I think this combination of offline retailers, large ones going online, the smaller ones who were never online coming online, D2C brands just coming up, FMCG brands opening their online fronts. I think all of these pieces have led to this transition. And as we were discussing just before, right, what this has done is all our technology roadmaps have got accelerated in the last few months. So I think that's the comment on what is technology doing. It's fundamentally shifting the market, and some of these changes are permanent. Now, the other point around consumer sentiment, clearly the first reaction was to say, how can I be safe? And thus, the transition of the essential categories happened towards more online channels. But the consumer sentiment now, and especially in the last 2-3 months, is to go back and experience what they have missed out on. Because life is meant for so many more things, and retail is not just essentials, right? Retail experience itself is very important. And we've seen our footfall business led by F&B and fashion, both of these categories almost doubling in the last month. So towards the end of September, we started to see this uptick, and it's continued in October. There was a share shift because of Navratra, of food taking a little bit of dip in that week, but then fashion continuing to grow. And then the last week of October, we've seen again a very strong reversal towards offline. So my sense is that while there's a shift that's happened towards technology, now we are seeing a very broad-based and wholesome demand come back for people wanting to go out and experience retail as well. And that's very exciting. We measure our business in terms of how soon can we get people back to where they were, different retailers across different parts of the world and different parts of the retail ecosystem. And our sense is that F&B and fashion, the two categories which were hit most by this, they should see a complete recovery happen by the December cycle. And we are seeing most of these curves that are kind of moving in that direction.
Interesting. So you're saying it's not just the essentials, not just grocery. It's even categories like QSR and fashion and art. And I know QSR you largely count as essentials, but are those coming back as well? You're seeing shift towards those the online to offline is building up as well.
Yeah, I think so. So grocery, pharmacy, those never took as much of a hit. The categories that took a hit, those are very strongly coming back now.
Got it. So, Ajay, looking at it from a category perspective, I think given the quantum of stay at home, given the quantum of work from home, home is probably where we are spending most of our time as consumers today. So do you see that bearing out in a joyful festive season? Your perspective, what one, and you sort of look at both businesses. You have your stores and you have the online picture. So, what are you seeing in the consumer mood?
So definitely home's a beneficiary of, the fact that people are spending more time at home. And, it seems like from what Girish said, will continue to do so as people are, moving to investing in better homes or rent versus buying versus renting. We see this worldwide. Even in our export business, we see a significant jump. So I think that's across the category. And I feel some of the safety aspects as well, whether we've launched an antiviral range, is also important. What we are seeing is very similar to what the previous panelists have said. The bigger cities have been slow to recover over the last 6 months. The business kept a decent, I would say, set of numbers first from the other cities, but now all the bigger cities have come back, and we see a growth in the business compared to last year. And talking about online, yeah, the online business is definitely something which is still small as a percentage of the overall business, but over the last year, the numbers are going 3x, 4x for sure. The interesting part about our business is that the consumer does not really need to come into the store. There's no inventory in the store. We've got samples. So a lot of our physical retailers have been actually reaching out to consumers and sending the samples home and managing to keep the numbers. So that's been a new adoption. Consumer sentiment is getting better every day. I think it's mainly coming from, corporates restoring salaries to full levels. And I think that's giving the confidence to people that things are normalizing. I think the news of the vaccine as well around the corner is also probably improving consumer sentiment. And I think we've been fortunate in India in a certain sense. We've not lost the main festive season. So our opening up of our economy nearly to full levels is synchronizing with the festive season. So that's helping as well.
Excellent, excellent. So clearly, there is some cheer abound. So with that, I will, Ritesh, consumer durables is seen as the sort of bearer of the business confidence, if I can. So what are you seeing in the consumer durable space? Are you seeing a similar sort of shift? Are there certain pieces picking up again between online, offline, as well as categories? How is the mood from a durable standpoint?
Sure. See, before that, Anurag, I would like to, step back a little bit. I think, in our college days, we had heard of this term, like marketing myopia, the tendency to see the end of your nose as the market. I think we have all been guilty of that in a big way. 2-3 things I would like to point out about the pandemic. Number one, and the impact on the economy. Number one, the pandemic itself was much more concentrated in the large cities. Bombay, number one, top 10 metros. As you go beyond that, the impact itself has been far lesser. That's one. Second is, in a country where 4% people pay taxes, direct taxes, the impact of loss of salaries on the economy is fairly limited. Number three, in an economy like ours, where GDP, because there is such a large cash component, not a black component, a cash component. When there's a large cash component, calculating GDP is a painstaking process. Because you have to, analyze every touch point where the cash economy meets the white economy, and assess the price being paid, the value being added, etc. We have taken the figures released at the end of a quarter, which is usually called a quick estimate or something, as a Bible, as a gospel truth on what has happened to the economy. 24% decline is bullcrap. It's not happened. 2-3 things now linking it back to my business and what I have seen. From the day we managed to start opening our stores, Bangalore was the first. I think last week of May is when we started. Whichever stores have been open have been doing good business. That's one. Yes, we were stuck in our houses. There were restrictions on delivery. There were restrictions on movement. There were certain categories which are more important for work from home, learn from home, started doing better faster. And innovative solutions like buy over phone call, buy over video call, WhatsApp business, all of that started happening. We also did it. You have to find a way. Retailing in our category uh, starts by buying the product, which you then have to sell to release the margin, and the product loses value very quickly when it's sitting on the shelves. So therefore, whatever we had bought, we had to try and sell as fast as possible. Therefore, we all found innovative ways of doing it. Through May, June, largely online was the way to do business. Online in various forms. I'm including phone calls also as online, WhatsApp calls also as online. Starting July, business started coming back to the stores. July, our business of 90% was 90% of last year. August, we grew 21% over last year. Shraddh, we grew 25% over last year. Festive, so far, we are growing 18% over last year. Okay, so the biggest problem in our category is supplies. The impact of the pandemic on the global supply chain in our category, and the unpredictable shifts in demand. So laptops of better specs, dishwashers, microwaves. These were not things which were either doing well or expected to grow at the rate they have grown this year. And therefore, there is a mismatch between demand and supply. So supply chain is a problem, demand is not a problem. Smaller towns are less affected. Smaller towns, which are essentially, where the agricultural economy drives the income of the cities, are sitting on one bumper crop this year, and they are looking at the prospect of a second one as we speak. And yes, the other one, when I'm traveling, and I've been traveling now for the last 4 weeks, across smaller towns, I see people having moved on, but people have also started taking, strong measures to, stay safe. So yesterday in Indore, I was at a shop selling namkeens, and the way that guy has brilliantly, executed the safety measures, I'm sure it is resulting in share gain for him. And I'm sure it is also giving customers the confidence to step back in. Anybody who shops in that store will go home and tell his neighbors, boss, aap wahan ja sakte hain. You will feel safe. They're taking all kinds of precautions. So I think these are the few things I wanted to say. Overall, our business, like I said, we are well above our last year numbers. If supplies are in place till Diwali, we should only see the numbers go up even further.
Excellent. Thanks. I think interesting you say this. I think Q1 clearly, whether it's the GDP numbers, whether it's the Nifty companies, whether it's the BSE companies, I think we saw probably a largely supply-driven shrink, right? Of whether it was because of the lockdown, whether it was because of supply lines from outside being shut, but we saw a significant shift in Q1, largely on account of that, closer to the 20% kind of number the GDP saw. Q2 has probably, I think, in aggregate terms, will probably see better numbers. Like you said, demand has come back. Top cities probably more impacted than the rest of India in former shape. But clearly, I think salaries as well as, let me say, business measures, small businesses trying to cover and get themselves back will add to this. So good to see that. And typically, we've seen in old studies, if durable starts to pick up, then and you're saying it is picking across categories, not just home-enabled categories. So that pickup typically cascades into other categories in a quarter or two. So I think that definitely bodes well for a larger chunk of the business as well. And I will come back to you on some of the, you said around safety and who's winning and what they are doing to win right now. But I just want to go across to Sachin and get a perspective on, gems and jewelry, on diamond business, and also the broader luxury market, right? I mean, India is very different to what we see of some of the other revenge consumption markets, if I can. But how has, it's a tough business to move online. It's a tough business to shift in with, and spend value on. So how, Sachin, what are you seeing Indian consumers do? What is the shift in behavior you're seeing on gems jewelry? This is the time that they stop that up.
Thanks, Anurag. Actually, if I were to sort of comprehend my thoughts, a lot has been said by Girish, Anshu, Ritesh, Ajay, And it's just that I could cut off their category and put gems and jewelry. Perhaps the consumer sentiment is pretty much similar, and I think that's the reality. Now, just to add to all the stuff that has been shared around, the smaller markets doing better than the bigger markets and all of that, I think the interesting thing that we saw is that consumers are looking to buy fewer but better things. So brands, better quality, and our kind of things, high quality of diamonds. I mean, that's one sort of way we've seen moving. Now they're looking to buy meaningful things, not necessarily to show to the neighbor. They have to mean something to yourself. And I think I've not come across one consumer, and actually no one I've come across post-COVID times who's not come to really realize what are the things that matter. Actually, what are the relationships that matter? And there is a sense of genuinity to sort of express gratitude or really feel inside what you feel for the other person. So there's a lot of genuinity in the purchase. And I can tell you in the gems and jewelry business, at times it was all, a lot to do with, expressing to the outer world. Now it's moved a little more internalization. That's happening. There's also a sensibility of sustainability, which earlier was not even a subject of discussion. I mean, we have a large-scale operation of a brand called Forevermark in India, and Forevermark comes with an entire integrity promise that these are responsibly sourced. And I can tell you that the responsibly sourced subject was there, but it's been looked now up to. So I think that's a phenomenal shift as well. Now, another thing that another area of deep diving into our category of gems and jewelry, you would agree to me that pretty much, without bifurcating an Indian consumer from economic perspective or which geography comes from, all of us have a family doctor, and we had a family jeweler, yeah. And the family jeweler is the ultimate faith of confidence you'll have, and you'll be very happy to put whatever it takes to sort of put your hard-earned money, and that has been changing. I mean, organized play is getting more mainstream, and some big organized players have done a great job around it. But what's happened post-pandemic is that that thrust to acquire information, that thrust on transparency, that thrust to say, is my family jeweler, giving me the things which he's supposed to, and all of that, and that's gone phenomenally high. And the fact that the consumers, we've just recently completed a survey where we realized that a consumer who's walking into a physical store to buy diamonds is actually gone online to see the category at least 10 times, which was never the case in India. And this is happening pan-India. It's not just centered on the big markets or the small markets. It's an average that I'm telling you pan-India. So I think digital is moved the fulcrum on storytelling, on looking at designs, on information seeking, on looking at transparency, which in our case was always very great. And that's a positive, and I think a permanent positive that's here to stay, right? E-commerce itself or a physical transaction is still a very small number, and post-COVID, we've seen a change there, but I think it's that change itself we would have taken a few years if this was not a pandemic. But I think consumers are more informed, and I think that'll go for every category. They will look at options before entering physical stores. So I think those are the elements that we see. And to really tell you, to end my session in terms of this context, where we are right now, we are almost at a 70 to 75% recovery as a category, which is phenomenal. We are very hopeful of the October to December time. There's a fundamental belief that consumers would want to, feel joyful, celebrate, express love, and our products really stand for all of that. And we're seeing a fair amount of comeback. Now, things that are changing are that if we people in our business who are close to the consumer, who can understand what's happening in their minds in forms of a design change. So elaborate crazy pieces are out of the question. You're looking at more simplicity is the way of life. I think if we are nimble, quick, fast enough to respond to those needs of the consumer, people will be winners. And I think that could resonate to perhaps more categories than just gem and jewelry. Any number of saying 70% recovery, 80% recovery, or perhaps even a growth is not going to be general. People who are doing a smart job will get that extra share. A lot of people who are, in a status quo mode will really suffer. So that'd be my view.
Interesting. So thanks. I think that good perspective, and I think there are two or three pieces that you sort of touched upon there, which I would like to sort of lay open to the panel. and let me pick up first on us point of saying that. So I think what I hear broadly from all of you is that clearly there is a trend upwards, right? Some categories have been on the right side of the business and therefore have benefited upwards. The others are catching up, but there is a trend upwards, right? However, I think the question therefore is, what is determining the winners, right? And there is three parts of question that I've asked. So I think one is, clearly we've seen, what I hear from you, a different social dynamic at play. So what kind of, so consumers are not meeting as many people, social interactions are down, they're working from home, number of visits might be down, but they're still continuing to consume. And similarly, the desire to be well, the desire to be more safe is making sure certain types of consumer, whether it's in terms of age brackets or whether it's just the more at-risk populations who are possibly paying less. So I think the question of you is that, what is the change that we've seen in both the, are there specific segments of consumers that are shopping more, and therefore, whether it's by age, gender, type of city, that you're seeing significantly shopping more, and what's the kind of shift that it's made to category that is selling out there, or is it year before or before that? Open to any of you to pick up.
Look, it's difficult to say if one segment is shopping more, but I think, where are people spending more? I think more people are spending on home and anything to do with making life at home more comfortable, more enjoyable, more livable. Because fundamentally, there's a shift in the importance of the home to people's lives. It is today your office, it's your school, it's your entertainment hub, it's your, the cafe, everything that you were doing outside, you have now tried and found ways of making it happen at home. So anything that goes into the home, whether it is furniture, furnishing, whether it is electronics, whether it is kitchen goods, I recently saw HUL has launched a brand of mayonnaise in India because people are cooking more for themselves. These kind of things will start happening as well. So anything that goes into the home as a space is at a premium now suddenly. That would be my take.
In real estate, as I mentioned, the size and the ticket size of the homes has dramatically changed. So the average ticket size now, for example, in a city like Mumbai, and you'll be shocked and surprised to know that, is around 1.5 crore, which means that most of the transactions are happening in the far suburbs and smaller homes. And even when you see mainstream suburban Mumbai, the sizes of the new launches are now, at an average of 600 and 650 square feet, as opposed to, the whole boom of 1,000 square feet plus homes that were earlier decade the mainstay in the real estate segment. So customers and home buyers, potential home buyers, are those who are largely end users, and are those who are looking to kind of consolidate and stabilize and find their own home, given the whole situation of insecurity that also has actually creeped in the way landlords had responded when the pandemic set in to people who were living on rent. And therefore, the sense of security is now more heightened and moving towards securing that piece of land, which eventually someone really wants to look at. So that, to my mind, has been a psychographically driven shift in terms of consumption patterns, if you will, when it comes to buying homes.
Also, this entire thing of working from home, you need a nice place to sit and work. Therefore, and also the thing that you don't need to necessarily commute to office, so it can be a little further away from the place as well. So both of these things are together driving people to, find their own little nest, I think.
Right.
No, if
Category
I may
wise,
add, yeah, if I may add, there is we did talk about it yesterday as well. There is a level of a consumer who's economically not impacted by COVID, right? And I'm referring to the high-end consumer. And not that they're actively going out, like perhaps what we saw in China, and we'll be reading about those revenge buying that's happened. But there's a sense of saying that, okay, I need to get out, I need to do something. But brands and solutions which are actively approaching to them and treating or just knocking on the door for that need, that latent need, are responding very well. So in our business, I know that the high end is gone above the roof. So, and when I say high end, I'm talking about 3 carat plus diamonds. That's an area that's really booming, and people who've been stuck at home are responding heavily. The other, just to give flavor to our conversation with everybody, the other is the wedding segment, which is a very important one for our business. And very interestingly,
Right.
what's happened in that segment is that, typically in an Indian wedding, or if let's say you have a certain budget to be spent or invested in the wedding, that budget is not perhaps a 1 month salary or 2 month salary. I mean, people save it over a lifetime, right? And what's interestingly happened is, and I'm talking about hugely in tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 markets, also in tier 1 markets in some sense, that the budgets have stayed the same, right? But the expense, which was earlier on 4 large functions with 2,000 people each, heavy duty honeymoons and all that, is not happening. But we've been the category that has been able to attract that investment. So it's been a great amount of percentage of that kitty that used to go to different segments is now going to gems and jewelry. So again, not everybody's taking the advantage of it, but people who are smart and knocking the door of really, translating that latent need to the consumer are benefiting.
Interesting.
Let me just build on these points, right? Some of this is just a repeat of what, like all of Ritesh, Sachin, and Girish said, that I think things that are increasing the quality of life of people, I think those are certainly in demand, and people are in fact willing to spend more because it is something which is important for them. They directly derive value more than they used to because they're spending more time at home, for instance. They're willing to spend more. They continue to be value conscious about it, so they look for an opportunity to save, but the ticket sizes to an extent have gone up across the board. Now, there are two things that are happening from a supply point of view around where we see that some supplies doing better than others, and all of them are our partners. So the retailers and brands that are investing in communicating with these users who also now have more time to spend and research more online, a little bit of what Sachin said, right? Like people are researching online, spending more time online. They are building better traction, and it's being done in two ways. One is that direct to consumer brands, right, who never had any other offline presence, now realizing they are in a very sweet spot because they are equal to anyone else who had spent so much time building the offline network. But even without that, they can reach out to the same consumer, talk about the value proposition, talk about the communication, and they are doing it digitally in a very digitally native way. So they don't need that salesman or that intermediary to do all of that conversation. The value is being delivered through the content, through the messaging that's being done, right? And they're probably doing a better job in that in some way, right? So they are able to get that customer. Examples of this would be, at least in our system, I see electronics, accessories, all of these high-end things which are very close to people, really seeing an uptick. And a lot of that is also going towards the newcomers who are coming in. The second is that established large retailers and brand, they are being smart and saying that, okay, these are our customers who know our brand offline, and they are finding that there is a void, that enough communication is not happening because those users are not coming out. But what if we reach out to them? What if we reach out to them online, provide that right content, provide the right call to action and conversion? Now, the digital funnels of many of the offline players are not as robust yet, but the ones that are doing best are the ones who are able to move fast on that, iterate on that, and there's a lot of learning that is happening. I think so. These are really the opportunities that customers are looking to spend more on things that they value, and there's an opportunity to communicate with them in the right way, express the value proposition in a much closer way than what was being done in the past, and thus be able to convert them online. And some of that online communication is then leading to an offline conversion also, because in our system we are able to see that some of the brands, they are able to sell on the online channel that they've created, but some of them are able to just see the offline channel convert better because of the fact that the communication is a lot stronger than what it used to.
Get it. So clearly exploiting the online channel, or let me say online interaction better, is thing, and I'll come back to explore that a little more of how a company is really exploring and doing this online interaction better, and what you see has changed. But just one more on the consumer itself. I want to understand. So what you are all saying is that clearly there is a type of categories which are interacting with consumers at home, which are growing, and people are willing to spend more on it because they're spending more time with it and building. Is that something that you see across the consumer ladder in terms of from the, say, more upwardly mobile consumer to some of the other categories that might have been hit more significantly in terms of, let's say, salaries or businesses to smaller businesses? So do you see that sort of across sort of price points kind of thing? And I think second, is the sort of tier of cities and rural, which I want to explore, but just across in terms of, and maybe Ajay, you have a range across. Do you see also the kind of luxury building out more, or do you see the sort of more mid-market kind of thing, or is it more is it across that people are seeing and following this move towards what they want to do with their homes?
We see a slight shift towards lower price points. We're definitely seeing a slight shift towards lower price points. We think that's happening because the growth is coming from the next income bracket of consumers joining to buying the brand. As far as the cities are concerned, I think there's a more diverse basket of cities now than before. So the concentrated sales is the pie chart is changing, and I think it's a function of home makeover cycles, which are very hard to keep track of. But I think everybody's being pushed a year earlier or so. So that's where the growth is coming from.
Right. Interesting. So that is a question, and I'll of really trying to understand what are the companies who are doing better right to with this. And I think there is two aspects to this. So one is like mentioned Ajay, I think this decentralization. So we've recently done this research called Full Potential Revival Growth, and one of the aspects that we uncovered in that research was that after the migration and with the reverse migration as well, not just rural, but what we see as quartile 3, quartile 4 GDP generators, right? I mean, smaller cities, they are clearly going to be accounting for growing faster and accounting for a much larger chunk of business. So I think one is that on the geography side, right? And second is, I think this entire, and you mentioned earlier as well, that online, while it has grown, it's not a needle mover yet in terms of significant shifts. So how are you seeing better companies really prepare to make the most of some of these shifts? Is there where would you say your investments have changed, or where are you spending the time and money?
So I think something that is not on the radar and should be highlighted is the companies that are doing better and that are going to do better are the ones who've treated their own employees better. It's very, very important. It's been an era where cost cutting, laying off seems to have become very legit and fashionable for corporates. And obviously, as the economy is opened up, some are struggling, just to get operations reinstated back because they didn't really take care of their people, especially, the factory shop floor has not probably been worried about too much as the lockdown broke out. So, I hear supply chain concerns in many sectors, but it's mostly stemming from not looking after people. Warehouses and factories are the backbone of everything that the consumer wants. Doesn't matter whether it's coming online or offline. The second aspect is definitely, companies that are doing better are the ones who are digitally, I would say, enabled in terms of their supply chain or information flow. And secondly, in terms of digitizing their product, at least, whether you're physical, even if you're a physical goods provider, it's underestimated how the quality of digital content is differing. So I think we're going to see a lot of improvement in that area, because once you are your products are part of a digital catalog. Really, how appealing is it? How much information does it have? And the whole consumer journey piece really matters now, as online becomes bigger. So that's what comes to my mind. And of course, the health and hygiene factors and safeties at retail points is also important. Those who've done a slightly better job will see consumers more confident of walking in.
Right. Excellent. Thanks, Ajay. And I think you bring a very, very important, interesting point. I think the entire looking after your employees, because ultimately it is, successful companies are the ones who ride the wave back, right? Not the wave down. And I think to ride the wave back, that's probably, the most critical element we've seen for organizations to have that capability. And I would love to hear the rest of the panel's view this as well on what you're seeing as differentiating winning companies and others. And we'll come to the part of what they are doing in the market, right? In terms of whether market actions have changed. Is it just about similar things as what you were done earlier? Diwali discounting, spending more, taking out better offers, better pieces. What has changed from that lens? But what do the rest of you see as what are winning companies doing to gain most from this build back of consumer demand, if I can say?
I think, if I can add, to Ajay's point, and I think from my perspective, it's also the time when, the values of the organization need to be on play. They're not just a poster on the wall. I mean, we've lived those values in large organizations to say, these are my 5 core values I'm going to live through. And this is perhaps a time when those values better play out in reality. And I think that's an important one. And I'm sure there's a people-led value in perhaps every organization, but like Ajay said, if people who were true to their value and stood behind the people in what their meaningfulness was, I think will be the winners, number one. Number two is coming from a very large conglomerate, and we operate in a variety of countries at different levels of mining, manufacturing, consumers, perhaps everywhere else. I think the other change from a corporate standpoint is the being again, the buzzword over the last few years was, let's be nimble, let's decide decision making should be fast. This was a time to be nimble, let people take decisions, do more decisions than less, the acceptance of failure. I mean, all these buzzwords that we used to talk over the last few years were actually in play, and people who actually played those buzzwords and organizations that did, I'm sure will behave to stay much stronger and longer.
Interesting.
Can I come in with some comments as well?
Yes.
I've spent a lot of time, not just in the real estate sector, but also in large global corporations and consumer goods like Reckitt and Coleman, J&J, and so on and so forth. But in what I've seen in the last decade in the real estate sector is corporates, listed corporates that have moved into the sector. I mean, one of the companies that I spent a lot of time with, Godrej Properties, were largely first movers in terms of technology and consumer-driven initiatives. But in the last few months or so, what I've been seeing is a massive, massive upsurge of not just corporates such as the ones I mentioned, but also probably, mom and pop and promoter-driven real estate firms that are showing a very, very strong appetite for prop tech and consumer tech. I mean, just to give you some examples, so many real estate developers are approaching us asking for social distancing and contact tracing solutions, which are similar to the ones that we are seeing, established in manufacturing units across the world, so that they can kind of build a cleaner and a better working environment at their construction sites. I mean, we have real estate developers who we are talking to with innovative solutions on lead generation, where they are now talking about social listening tools, the way political parties do. So a huge spectrum of social listening assessment is being done now, so that the lead generation is very specific and targeted. This is resulting with companies reducing their cost of lead acquisition, reducing their cost of qualified leads, improving their conversions, and so on and so forth. And mind you, I'm not talking only about top real estate companies. I'm talking about so many developers who are talking to me and trying to understand how we can help them with these kind of technology solutions that will help them. They want to understand integrating pre-sales, sales, and post-sales spectrum across their ERP systems to help them reduce their cost of operations, as well as increase their customer lifetime value. There are companies who are looking at AI-driven consumer analytics for predictive behavior. Now, we are all familiar with CIBIL scores. Today, we have developers coming and asking us to help them, saying, hey, can you help me establish a predictive model via your capability in prop tech and consumer tech available information, so that we get a sense of understanding on how these guys will respond in future to their payments that are due to us. So we've got this kind of a differentiation happening. So what has really happened is companies are very rapidly reacting and responding to a completely new way of doing business, which is largely driven by AI, IoT, and ML interventions. And that, to my mind, is going to be probably a differentiator at this point in time, and going forward, actually a way that real estate will get executed in the future. So this, to my mind, has been a huge shift as well that we are seeing.
Interesting. So would you say a lot of this is towards creating a different real estate product from what it was, or is it really more building capability of companies in-house to be able to react?
See, real estate product has been a shift. Like I mentioned, in the last 5 to 7 years, you've seen smaller homes coming in. You've got more technology entering homes in terms of, smart homes being built and developed. You've had green and sustainability being the next mainstay, as Ajay and others as well mentioned, that responsible corporates and developers are looking at ways in which they can reduce carbon footprint. There are companies whose names I can't say today, listed companies who will soon have disclosures related to their carbon footprints, disclosures related to their energy transition. We are working closely with developers and helping them in circular economies. So how they can reduce, for example, their overall carbon footprint. We are talking about energy conservation and recovery. So there are so many different ways in which today real estate and others are pivoting towards being able to, like I said, get more efficient, get back lost customers, create a sense of imagery and respect for their brands and businesses by virtue of not glib advertising, but by virtue of changing the way they're doing business. So I think a lot of these things are actually happening. And to my mind, the efficacy, the efficiency, and the whole evolution of the real estate spectrum of how it's been conducted, how business has been conducted, is going to fundamentally change.
Understand. So I think building back onto this, festive and making the most of it, and what the winners are doing. Any other thoughts from folks of what how are companies spending their money differently this year versus what they were doing, say, last year? Right? Because festive is always, whether it's to market, whether it is it online, is it moving to different geographies, is it moving to just build capabilities inside? Where do you think?
I can add a bit of value on a different space, which is representing a business that's hugely fragmented and is very geographically spread out. You work with traders, dealers, and there's a whole B2B space which was very physical in nature till 2019. And about 3 months before the season kicks off, there was large platforms created where people used to come transact, build up for the season, place orders and stuff. Now, in that time period, everything was shut. We were in a lockdown. And just to give you an example, at De Beers and at Forevermark, we do an annual conference, which was a 3-day platform where we got everybody in the damn business together. It was wine, dine, and do business kind of thing. Like how the B2B trade conference world used to be. This year, of course, we attempted a digital world, and pardon me by saying, but all of us have had a webinar fatigue. I mean, today in the month of August, if you invited somebody for a webinar, the guy wanted to join hand and say, "Boss, I don't want to come for another one." However, you still wanted to use technology, so we invested in platforms which were almost like a physical fair. You could come in, walk around, use elements like, as Girish mentioned, AI, very high optic, creative solutions that have come out. We were quite quick to adapt those, where you could zoom into the diamond, see the quality, which 6 months back was an impossible task. If you ask somebody to invest for their season sales through a Zoom call and not shake a hand, not have the cup of tea, that physicality was so important. I think technological tools well implemented have given that solution. And if a traditional category like ours, gems and jewelry, can move so rapidly that we transacted almost 70% of the last year's values at a B2B space on these technological platforms, I think pretty much every industry can. So I think that also is one area that that I think certain organizations are doing very well. Some people perhaps are catching up.
Anurag, just adding one more like different industry color on the same theme, and then I can react to the festive piece also. Like on retail, we have acquired around 100,000 retailers for enabling them for online delivery in the last. It's a massive number. The appetite
Right.
for technology to do business is huge. The starting point is to say that let us enable you to accept online orders across categories: grocery, pharmacy, stationery, the traditional ones, F&B, who are, I would say, further along, boutiques, right? Everyone. And once they're onboarded, I think then the full stack starts from there to payments, to third-party logistics that we've integrated into that solution, and then realizing that the storefront is not enough. CRM is a very important part of it. How do they collect more and more of their users, which Domino's did a very good job of, right? Being the traditional guy who did CRM and technology very well, providing all of that in a very simplistic interface to them such that they can consume it without as much of a hassle. And it's a non-trivial problem. The need is very strong. The need to, and the appetite for adoption is high. But for example, a Kirana guy, he would never have a sense of catalog, leave aside the inventory on the catalog. So trying to do that to him is really like unlikely to work. But then there are a lot of solutions, right? We are integrated into his POS, so we can read the bills that are being generated and thus create a or create an interface which is more like a communication interface where the consumer sends the bill, he says, I don't have this, I have this, instead of this, why don't you try this? And then the final itemized bill goes. So there's a lot of innovation there that is happening, and that's happening at a breakneck pace because there's just no time. All of this stuff needs to be done now such that the opportunity can be captured. So I think there's a lot of appetite from both sides around enablement, both on the businesses who want to be there, as well as from the providers of such solutions. Now, having said that, and that has enabled a lot of supply, brought it online, I'm seeing that the leading players across industries, they are investing a lot in building that brand, and just in most of the cases, just accentuating the brand with whatever is the core message and talking about it. Of course, that's also supported with discounts and savings, which are across the board available, which is to make sure that people come and transact. But there is a very strong sentiment, and large retailer, small retailer, everyone saying that I want to be present, I want to have that mind share. And that's what I think underlines the festive season. There is demand interest, but there is as much interest from the supplier to say that I'm going to lean forward and make sure things come back, which I think is what we are hearing in this conversation as well.
Yes. Interesting. I think both of you are saying clearly. I think the B2B space and the smaller shops not being wanting to left out of this entire chain and coming in. So I think Destiny, and I think as we talk to clients as well, we see this question of, okay, so digital has become significant, offline still remains significant as well. So do we really go interact with marketplaces much more now? Should we go place inventory, work with them better, give them the money and let them work significantly? Should we do significantly more on D2C ourselves and go money ourselves and do D2C? And that's where we should be focusing. Or should we, the hyper-local model, which is really the combining with the local offline, which was, if I can say a year and a half back, almost written off, has come back to bear in meaningfully new ways of how removing some of the earlier hurdles like inventory, cataloging, etc. Of that have come back. So I think clearly what all of you are saying, online has become large, but as manufacturers, and this is one aspect you're writing, but where do you see this is going in spending? I mean, is it how are, Nacho, maybe you can perspective of how are companies changing what they used to do? So from the manufacturer's perspective, are they keen on this 100,000 retailers that you've got on board and they want to do business with them and build through, or they're still more keen on the D2C and marketplaces and see how you can help them work with that better?
So I think so there's a very specific question to manufacturers, right? On that, I'd say they are very keen to support their existing channels, which is the fragmented scatter trade, right? They want to be there, they want to support them, and they know that the Kirana store also contributed meaningfully even in the time of pandemic, right? So that support is there, it is unconditional. what they also realize is that the big guys are consolidating the space, right? Whether it not just Amazon and the Flipkart, but like there's a Reliance which is going to invest so much, right? And there's this realization that at that point they don't want to be marginalized, because all of those big guys will also have their private labels, right? Which is just their playbook, right? That's what they do, right? And thus they are investing significantly in building a direct to consumer, whether it is HUL or it is PNG, across the board, everyone is coming up with their own direct to consumer also. And we are working with them across all of these initiatives. For example, HUL has this Hamara shop, which is helping the small retailer. For instance, Procter & Gamble has this PG shop, right, which is a direct to consumer initiative that they've launched. So I think it's exciting and interesting where technology is transforming all of these. And the realization on the manufacturer side is that while all of that is happening, they can no longer afford to just be selling through distribution. They need to be touching the consumer directly for the commerce.
Interesting. Is that, rest of folks, do you see that as well? Do you see direct to consumer being a very large part of or a significant part and a growing part of what you do business, or is that still something that you would say is the channel retains the importance?
So I think the B2C is obviously much more important. The first person who tell you that is any guy in the stock market, and anybody who is understanding how a consumer's data can be monetized over a period of time will also support that view. Hence, I think the investments towards that direction are more, even though the returns may come slightly slowly. Just being suppliers or just being a brand that passes the baton in a relay race to somebody else and then forgets about it, not really the most productive way to even learn about what new products you should be developing, what exactly is the consumers ask, and then moving more towards solutions from products, the complete package, etc., or other value addition opportunities. Will come from a B2C thrust. So the people are waking up to that and building more digital capability. I think in many sectors like ours, for example, it's not appropriate to be doing a lot of flashy ads at this time. In a certain way, it's not sensitive. So redirecting some of that spend towards digital and towards building better supply chain capabilities to support digital, the investments should be.
Sorry, go ahead. I think I got you. Thanks. I think that is good. So clearly, you're saying that building out D2C remains important, and moving money from more traditional marketing kind of things towards D2C and building importance. And I think from a future standpoint, important is to understand. Anshu touched upon it to say that the channel structure itself is shifting in our country with significant investments potentially going into large hyperlocal kind of plays. The fragmented business sort of that exists across categories in our country. That is, there are players trying to organize it with trying to become, let's say, the largest wholesalers, if I might, in the country, or intermediaries of wholesale in a significant manner. But I think if I look this from a pre-pandemic lens, there were challenges with this model, right? There were challenges with hyperlocal model of building consistency, building quality, assuring supply through these multiple people, getting inventory cataloging, etc. going. So, and even consumer comfort and retailer comfort. Some of that, I think, while the pandemic has clearly rolled people into a space of comfort with digital much more, or your space of necessity with digital much more. But let me use this opportunity to swing towards the future a little bit. And while, yes, it might be a bit of crystal ball gazing at the moment to say where it will go in 6 months or 9 months time as things start to open up, as vaccine comes back, as start to build back. But do we see the especially from a retail standpoint, do we see people coming back to stores, or will the role of the store sort of change forever, in the sense that there is one view that I heard stay from people saying that, probably only the experiential categories will need stores, the essentials will move online. So what is directionally, I mean, how do you see this, if you see this building back into the future? Is it more and more online channels, more consolidated, more build back buying that move towards, or do you think some of it will come back to offline retailing and stores, and that will continue to be end of life?
Uh, Hi, Rag. So if I may jump in, I think
Yeah.
a crystal ball is one way, but I would really say that at this stage in time, and Ritesh mentioned he started his travel 4 weeks back. I actually started my travels end of June, so I've been on flights, and I can confirm to you, being a traveler, at least 3 to 4 flights right now every week, is that it's almost normal. I mean, normal mean, for somebody as a regular traveler, you protect yourself, you wear the gears and shields. They started serving food on the flights last 4 weeks. So, shields are out of the picture. There's no mask. People are gulping food. So the speed to normalcy is phenomenal. On the first, second, third, and fourth day of Navratras, we opened 4 stores in Jammu, Ludhiana, Ambala, and in Gurgaon. And I can confirm to you that 100 kilometers out of Delhi, you really have to think that, is there anything called COVID? So I guess when we are talking about India, the meaningfulness of what COVID does and what the impact it's creating on offline online world is very different. And I think we don't need to get over bogged down by that. Of course, there'll be a new reality. I'm not denying that. They'll be thrust to digital, but the physical space or the things that are moving are very strong. I mean, very big. So to move the entire fulcrum is a very big ask. I only want to leave this by saying that we shouldn't forget what we really stand for as a brand. And consumers are looking up to joy. They want to celebrate. And at times we are getting too bogged down by not communicating to the consumer what really are and losing that connect. And those will be serious issues for businesses, not the consumer demand itself. I think we're over contemplating the whole COVID situation. I mean, right?
Right.
If you go out there, there's enough action. There's consumers are out. It's
Right.
low percentages, yes, and stuff.
Yeah, if I can also weigh in on this, see, I think there are some changes which are fundamental. The realization that you need a nice home to come home to at the end of work is important. Similarly, from the employer side, the realization that the entire thing of we must have one office where everybody comes every day in the morning, goes in the evening. The role of HR being to maintain discipline and attendance, etc. I think that's the other part which has really happened. I don't think, work from home may not continue, but a more relaxed attitude towards remote working, a paradigm of, outcome-based appraisal rather than discipline-based appraisals in organizations. And that could plan out in many different ways. Different organizations could do different things for that. A premium on being nimble, a premium, at least from a retailer's perspective, on focusing on the cash, because no retailer would want to repeat what happened. What happened at the beginning of this year when you're sitting on entire season stock of ACs in our case, something else in apparel, the season's fashion in an apparel case. So a premium on cash, nibble, digital innovation. See, anything we have learned in this period. So if you have started a video demo service on a site, we're not going to shut it down. And there will be a market which will, adopt that. But I think, there is a lot more to shopping than just the product or, the price of the product or the promotions on the product. People fundamentally like doing business with people they know. Part of that business is the engagement with the person. Like in the B2B case, we're talking about the cup of tea, not happening at the end of a discussion. I think it's an important part of the engagement. And the day we are allowed to do it, people will start wanting to do that again. So some things will change forever. some things will go back as soon as we can. And I can already see that happening definitely outside of Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, very, very rapidly.
So, Krish, I heard this a couple of times in terms of the outside the top 10 cities or outside the things. There is a lot of build, and clearly, like I said, there is our expectation also is that demand from there is going to be pretty solid. What are companies doing differently to address these markets? Is there, I mean, has something changed in terms of how you guys as retailers or manufacturers are addressing this market? I mean, while yes, you could say that it was earlier a smaller percentage, it's now a slightly larger percentage. But I mean, is it the same folks? Is it the same kind of aspirations? Are they wanting to be marketed in the same way, consuming in the same way, or is there people doing something different to really capture that market?
So local connect is critical. Till a couple of years ago, Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore were 80% of my business and maybe 70% of my growth. Today, that paradigm has completely changed. The entire growth is coming from outside these three cities for me. What we have changed, creatives in local language. One big change is the first copy is written in Hindi, not in English, because it's much easier to connect, in Hindi. And then from Hindi, when you translate to other languages, you still retain the strong flavor that connects across this country. English is far more difficult to translate into individual languages. So that's one big change. Even in terms of digital, what we find is, if you're doing a Facebook post in the local language rather than in English, even if the person understands English, he resonates better with the post in Gujarati. In terms of assortment also, while Chroma still extracts a premium, the premium is relative to the market price. So if in Bombay, my average selling prices of phones are 15,000 versus the market of 8,000, in Kolhapur, my ASP would be 12,000, while the market ASP would be around 8,000. So the premium also gets calibrated to the market which you operate in. And I think the biggest change, of course, is, I'm out there in the market looking for stores to open in Bulandshahr, Sonipat, Aligarh, all those places. Because that's where the expansion is going to come from.
If I may add to Ritesh's, if I may add to Ritesh's perspective,
yes,
I think, he mentioned about language, and I think that's an important one. So in our sense, 2019 was a large scale national campaign, for example, right? So your majority of investments will go into KBC or an IPL, and you look at a very fancy, ad campaign, you'll say, boss done. The fact is that all that has changed. So if you have a presence in Asansol or a Durgapur or a Sonipat or a Ambala, you better have an action plan in that local market this year. So there's less dependency on these vehicles, which would get your communication through to the consumer there, and really doing things there. So I think that's one change that I want to highlight.
And would you say, Sachin or Ritesh, that just in terms of marketing vehicles, right? So one is clearly local, but in terms of marketing vehicles this season, whether it is media digital, whether it's media otherwise, whether it's discounts, whether it's some of the others, what's been the shift in where you've spent your marketing money this year, or where you see companies spending it?
So I think a lot of companies have moved to digital, in my mind, too aggressively, because see, for us, the print ad continues to be the best way to get the momentum going, especially in the smaller towns. If you are doing Gujarat, then Divya Bhaskar. If you're doing UP, then Dainik Jagran. Every market has a top print vehicle, and that does the best job. Television is great for establishing, brand connect. It is also great for announcing, the start of the sales season, etc. And it continues to be that. Yes, OTT platforms have got added to the media plan, but that's just because of the content that is being viewed. It is still the large screen. The advertising still has to respond to the needs of the large screen. Digital has always been a great way to establish a two-way connect, create a direct channel of communication, where you be able to generate a lead and then take it through to the logical conclusion Too few companies actually do a good job of that in my mind. Too many companies are seeing Facebook posts as advertising, which I think is incorrect.
Interesting. Got it. So I think two things I hear from you, and I want to ask this as a almost last question before I open it to the audience for some questions and then back. I think, which is to say, what I'm hearing from you, all of you, to some extent, is that things will come back to normal. Yes, there is shift towards digital, uh, local experience, the ability to connect socially, people important. Uh, am I right to hear that folks are not seeing, if I can say, a shift in business model? Slightly longer term. Yes, there is clearly more investments in digital, as I just spoke about, that are going back across the value chain and building through, but not, if I can say, a fundamental change in business model for whether it is to do with significantly more online and therefore you're sort of pivoting your model towards being playing with that better, or with hyperlocal. So is that
No,
is
no.
that
Business models are constantly shifting. There is no upheaval, I would say.
right?
To give you a perspective, and this was something which some other speaker also brought up. So when we went into lockdown, 1 out of 2 of our customers was visiting our site before coming to the store. So that is what we used to call digital influence. Online sales were less than 3% for us of the total sales. Today, online sales has grown to 10% of our total sales. But instead of 1 out of 2 visiting the site before coming to the store, that number is now 3 out of 4. Okay, so it's a progression. If similarly, if you look at digital payments, whether in our stores or on our site, or doing transactions by EMIs, that has also seen a rapid increase. Okay, so changes are happening constantly. It's about staying nimble, keeping your ear to the ground, both on the side of what the customer is asking as well as what the environment demands, and you'll keep shifting along. I don't think it's a fundamental shift. You shut down your stores and you convert to a website, but yes, or vice versa. But yes, you will see more businesses acquiring a digital strategy, because it's a great way of informing the customer, soaking him in the purchase, and letting him decide to buy whether he wants to buy online or offline.
Anurag,
Anurag, I'll just reiterate the point Ritesh made. That's absolutely right. 95% of retail was offline prior to pandemic. It will still be 90%, right? That's not changed. And I'm talking across categories. It's just that that would be a sliding scale, and the influence though would continue to grow much faster. How do we stay close to the consumers on that channel? I think that is important, and continue to build more deeper capabilities such that offline and online are not considered two separate teams, right? It's like online being to an extent omni-channel strategy that never gets executed. I think a lot of those things, those paradigms are just becoming what they always should have become at a much faster pace than what was happening in the past. I think offline will remain a very strong component. That's at least what our business is entirely built upon. Humans will want that interaction, those experiences. Even in a category like essentials, walking into a store to be able to consume, right, or to be able to see what is it that I can consume, that's also very fundamentally a retail experience. So offline will remain. It's just better integration with online that's happening now, or the better companies are doing that.
Right. Right. Ajay, you were saying something.
So, Anurag, I think the consumer, if he's looking for a brand, if he's made up his mind to buy something, I think it's also up to the brand as to where is the brand considering it better to engage with the consumer or catch him. Of course, all the good brands would have all the channels. I'm not really disagreeing with what the previous people said in any way. The physical channel, the hyperlocal, store, all of that is, existing. However, like Anshu said, as if 95% becomes 90%, what does that mean for that channel? And if, e-commerce becomes from 3% to 10%, what does that mean for that channel? That's one aspect. But the aspect for the brand is, where are you going to find a lower cost to serve, a higher return on marketing investment? And how are you going to actually adjust for yourself? What is going to be your bet? So one bet which is very evident to certain categories is, there's going to be a war between Flipkart, Amazon, Geo and GeoMart, and that is going to result in, I would say, two very big issues. One issue is it's going to become the cheapest place where the consumer can buy something, and the consumer is going to recognize that. And that bleeding is going to affect. So the consumer is going to go to the physical store and probably not buy there. So that's obviously going to hurt the physical stores, and they have to adjust with a smaller footprint. So the sizes of the stores surely has to go down. Otherwise, the stores won't be profitable anymore. On the other side, the whole distributor piece is completely, the middleman is, got to figure out really how efficient he's going to be, because what does he really do in this world where, so for certain categories, e-commerce is, contributing too much. The last part is, what's really going to be for the brand the most profitable way to reach the consumer. What's the pushback on the cost to serve? Really, does an e-commerce say, listen, and you give me 15% and I'll get your product across? And does physical retailers give me 35% and I want more? So what we are seeing is that physical retail for too long, the small hyperlocal store has been very driven on margins and incentives, and not passing many of those on to the consumer. Whereas the e-commerce shift is very much the other way around. They want to have a war on, how they lure the consumer to their place. They don't really are not bothered about positive cash flows. So if you look at a country like India, Indian consumers very sensitive to pricing. So you see a more rapid acceleration. Also, India, has now been enabled digitally before. The phones in the hand of people, the price comparison story becomes very, very important. So in summary, what I'm saying is that if you ask me to do some crystal ball gazing, I'd say digital grows faster than what anybody is imagining, because firstly, it gives you reach. It gives you a lot of reach. You get into places where you don't think, you ever could sell. We are selling on our website to a returning non-resident Indian wanting his home done up in Canada. So that's not something you are even aspiring for, and that's coming to you. So this gives you tremendous reach. Then, of course, the smaller town reach where you don't think a store is viable yet for your brand, at least for the EBO. And the third piece is it gives you the lowest cost for the consumer as well as for you. If it's going to be low cost for the brand, and it's going to be low cost for the consumer, then these guys are funding the whole journey much efficiently for both of these players, and that's going to be the channel to play. Is what I feel. That's where you should be spending a little bit more of your effort than you have been doing. The physical channels, definitely will stay, but will cede territory.
Excellent. I think Ajay, that's a fantastic summary. And thanks for that. And I think both clearly, I think that is my point. Manufacturers will need to look at this differently. Standpoint, there will be a shift, and so will the channel. While the consumer will go to what is best for him, whether from a value perspective or an experience perspective. But with, like you said, aggregators coming in between, the channel will need to find their space and will need to build that. So thanks very much for that. Any last comments from anybody? I think in the interest of time, guys, I will hand that. I think the audience question that we had has been addressed. Any last comments from anybody before I hand it back to Deepak for? Excellent. So thank you very much, Few, for a very stimulating conversation. I think taking back some interesting insights from here. Deepak, over to you on this up.
Outstanding conversation. It was extremely insightful, and I just hope that this Diwali bring back the regular sparkle for everyone. So that's something which I wish for. Very, very quick questions, just on the work for everyone, and but few things I a little curious too. So Sachin, maybe I could start with you. You mentioned about how your business is so traditional and so dependent on multiple players and so and so. What was that one biggest strength of your company which kept you going during this difficult time?
I think Deepak, the most important thing was really, again, going back to the two values. I mean, we have like various values, but living those values. But one was pulling together, and I think Ajay mentioned about how you have to be people. I mean, you have to be with them, and I can tell you the inspiration I have from my team has been phenomenal. So I think that pulling together as an organization throughout the value chain, how we really stayed connected was one, and the other aspect was shaping the future, and the future was going to be different. So I think we let everybody without hierarchy to put forth an idea and try it out. So we did a whole lot of innovation of sorts, which as a large conglomerate we would have never perhaps done before. So these are two things I'd like to highlight.
Interesting. अब मेरठ में बैठे हो तो ये भी बता दो which is a favorite Indian sweet that you eat at Diwali. Certain.
अरे यहाँ तो बहुत कुछ है. So there's enough and more, and I love to send all of you guys some lots of goodies from here. And the goodies change by the hour here. So morning is something else, evening is something else.
And Ritesh,
We hope that doesn't change.
you have some outstanding chroma stores spread across the country, and that's an experience that you have been providing, and that experience cannot be given digitally. I mean, then it would become another Flipkart or Amazon from that matter. And so, which has been that biggest challenge that you actually have been seeing to bring back your business on track?
No, so Deepak, number one, I disagree with you that what we do in the stores cannot be done digitally. That's a challenge we have been working on for a couple of years, and I think now it's 2 weeks ago that we changed our interface on the entire UI of Chroma.com was changed. But again, it's a journey. You climb a staircase, a stair at a time. You probably hit a landing so far. Our inspiration on that is a brand called Best Buy in the US. Started from the same place as us. Lots of stores, great experience in the stores. Digitally, they were a cipher. Today, a quarter of their business happens online, and they enjoy 50% of the search volume for any electronics. I think the difference between electronics retailer and a marketplace is because they cannot really distinguish between how they sell groceries or apparel or electronics versus when you're selling electronics, you have an opportunity to create the navigation that you do in the store, on the site as well. So bring alive your expertise, bring alive the approach to sales closure that you do in your stores, which is essentially how do I get an exchange, how do I convince the customer that he's got a fair value for his exchange old product, how do I help him dispose of the old junk in his home, how do I against his credit rating ensure he gets a appropriate loan for him to buy. Against that, how do I help him get the best value on the merchandise of the table? Knowing what he's buying, let's say if he's buying a television, what are the cables he should buy, what are the other things he needs to buy along with that for him to completely enjoy the TV. For instance, one of the big learnings in the last couple of years is as the televisions have got larger and thinner, the sound has really become worse and worse. So therefore, today, if you're selling a TV, you also have to convince the guy and help him understand why he needs to buy a sound bar, because otherwise, Mr. Bachchan is not going to sound like Mr. Bachchan on his new TV. That's the kind of thing which an expert retailer in any category. I mean, if you want to look at India, Nykaa is a great example. Okay, Mintra is a great example. There is always room for a category specialist apart from a marketplace in any category, and that's really the destination we are working towards. Even with our old site, a lot of the functionalities that allow us to be a proper functioning marketplace, omni-channel retailer, being able to expose store inventory anywhere, being able to sell chain-wide inventory in every store of the chain. These are the two critical capabilities of an omni-channel retailer. These we have had for over 3 years now. Helping a guy being able to track his order from genesis to delivery, that's something we are working towards completing. And it's a, like I said a while back, there is something called video calling we have started, which allows you to take a video demo of a refrigerator from the comfort of your home, for instance. There are all these improvements and changes which will keep happening. Our biggest strength will continue to be our stores, but the ability to deploy digital stores in stores and in people's hands for him to make a fully informed decision, delivering the brand's promise of we help you buy, is something which we are working on.
Excitedly looking forward to the digital experience of Chroma, Ritesh, I can say that. And which
do check out a new site and give me the feedback.
I haven't been there lately, so going to go down and have a look at it today. And which is your favorite Diwali sweet, yeah?
Anything sweet is my favorite sweet.
Oh.
I don't wait for Diwali either. It happens every day.
And Ajay, which are those two products that you're going to tell everybody to come down and buy from D Decor this Diwali?
So Deepak, we're not in the habit of dictating fashion very restrictively to people. We have a very wide range. So we've laid out 2,000 new fabric options this season, and you can suit your size, your style, your price point. D-Decor's always played, spoil for choice strategy, and the investment in all those products is equally strong from a wide set of design and product innovation levers have all been there. But the antiviral range is definitely something which is contextual, and it is for people who are concerned about how this virus actually gets onto you. The upholstery fabric is one case. The bedding is another case where there's a very, very high degree of physical contact. So that's it from our side.
You operate in 65 odd countries. So do you also have a retail presence out of India, or just the export market?
So it's still B2B. It's not, we are selling to other brands. It's still private label as to speak, the export business. But we're selling to very strong distributors. The 65 countries is, I would say, a long tail situation, but 80% of our business is in export is Europe and the US. And there we're selling to, quasi partners. That's what we are doing.
Beautiful. And Girish, you've been a man of varied interests here, and I know lately you also have a tea interest that's come up between you and your wife. Would love to hear that brand. Yeah, how's that's bringing up? You never mentioned about that. You're on mute, Girish.
Sorry about that. I've been quite a maverick in my career. I started off with Reckitt & Coleman, then I set up the consumer pharma business for J&J. Then I helped Vijay Mallya launch Kingfisher Airlines. And then, last decade, I've been pivoted towards real estate and leadership roles with, Godrej, and then CEO of the Vadha Group, and then, of course, executive director of Knight Frank. But my passion, honestly, is deep technology, AI, IoT, ML, and how that interfaces and brings value to startups and corporates alike. And of course, my wife is an accomplished tea sommelier. She runs her own brand of very high-end organic, whole leaf wellness teas. So that's her passion. She's an ex-Tataite. She's ex-West Side, Ritesh, from the founding team, and Simone and Noel were running that part of the business. So that's largely, what I do. And Ajay, the curtains at the back are D-Decor, and the Jabra 75 key Ritesh is from Chroma Juhu. And I must compliment your Chroma Juhu folks. Those guys, the sales guy there, a guy called, I think, Tanmay, fantastic. I mean, he really, spent hours and hours to kind of help me out with this purchase. And I really must give Chroma and your training modules credit for that. So
you need DBS earring as well, Girish, moving forward. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Girish, that's the only thing missing in your wife's.
You can't put that out on a public forum. No, what diamonds your wife.
True.
Yeah.
Well, Anshu, I love asking this to every entrepreneur, and I'm one of them, that what is the goal of your company? And, and this is something which I sometimes fail to answer myself, but do you have an answer to that question?
Yeah, so I can give you the, let's say, the more consultant-like answer to this question, which is retail is dark in terms of data, especially the offline side of the retail, right? Contrast the online side of the retail, you visit an Amazon page and the product follows you for a month wherever you go on the internet, right? Contrast that with the 95% of retail that's offline. Like if you could understand the flows of data, the commerce that's happening there at a product level, user level, category, SKU, AOVs, right? You can connect users, retailers, manufacturers in a way that hasn't been done. And that's what Magic is doing. We are at scale. We are doing close to $1 billion of that. And our goal now is to take that one step forward, this glue between users, retailers, and manufacturers, and bring that in a way that it's a brand. So far, we've been working in a much more of an efficiency curve way. We've not invested enough around getting known as a brand among consumers. And what we are doing now, and the focus for us in the next few months, is to start to take that position, be visible and with the right message across different channels, whether it's print, radio. So we are investing a lot, in fact, in the offline channels to make sure that the awareness that we need to build around us being the discovery and savings platform, the largest one of its kind in India, that comes through and we start to get known for that. So yeah, that's the long term and the short term of what we're doing right now.
Brilliant. Anurag, you've been advising every large retail customer in this country, possibly. But tell us something about yourself beyond work. Yeah? What keeps you excited otherwise, beyond this retail thing? And what are your passion areas here?
I think, Deepak, the reason I continue to do consumer retail is it continues to excite me. So I started off also with FMCG and then worked in consulting now. 15 years have been continuing to do consumer retail work, and I think, this business still continues on and off. Work continues to excite me, right? Just watching shoppers, seeing how it changes, how Indian people shop. I think the opportunity is so large, and how Indians continue to remain distinct, right, from what they do. So I think that continues to excite me on off. But yeah, I to all your sweet questions, them I've been thinking about Delhi weather's changing. Fantastic time to be changing ground, right? I mean, this is the time to be in Delhi and consuming all the sweets that winter has to offer. So these 6 months are the reason to live the city. So yeah, so also a passionate foodie, I would say.
Yeah, Delhi has that sweet called doda, that something called a sohan halwa, which is probably gets missed out every rest of the part of the country. So yeah, so enjoy that. And so, well, friends, I think it was an outstanding conversation. Really enjoyed this. Extremely engaging and insightful, I must say that. And great fun. So wishing you all a very, very happy Diwali in advance. And I hope that you all enjoy your best. And take good care of yourself. And I really look forward meeting up everybody in person. I think the time's not far off, and we'll be meeting up soon. Saying so. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Deepak.
Thanks,
Anurag. Take care, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Okay, everybody.
Bye.